Ask, and you shall receive. People have been requesting this one for a little while now, which I don't totally understand. Very, very boring ride to operate. You literally do nothing. Well, you used to do nothing. It was like that for 10 years. We'll talk about how it changed. But this coaster, many of you, it might be notable in your brain because the feeling you got off when you got off this ride for the first time, the level of disappointing was insurmountable, whatever the word is. I just remember like, wow, this is it. That was it. I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be like a Eurofighter indoors, and you know what I thought would have been cool is if they did the Eurofighter indoors and they had the top of the lift pop out of the roof. That would have been cool. That's what I had envisioned in my head as a child this ride would be. But anyway, so as the operator, you stand at this panel, and there's a Spiels panel right next to it. Talk to all the brakes, people in the queue, that kind of stuff. But you stood at this panel, lap bars open, lap bars close. They locked automatically once they got to a certain point. Dispatch, auto, enable, disable, I believe. I didn't spend a ton of the time with this coaster, so I may be a little bit off on some of this stuff. I believe station on, station off. You could start, oh, this is station stop right here, so this must be station start. And then there was auto dispatch. You had to turn that on, so as the cars would come through, as long as the lap bars were down, once the lift was clear, it would dispatch itself out. I believe now they changed it so you have to manually dispatch each one out. So yeah, that's where you turn on and off the continuously moving station. And then there's a secondary panel. This is the maintenance panel. An operator would never touch this. But this is classic Mac. This is Mac ride. Buccaneer Battle's layout is kind of the same. Panel enable on off, control voltage, control on. So these rides are kind of unique because we didn't have a ton of Mac rides, and they kind of were different in the way that you had to tell it to do things. Like instead of start stop, things were off on, like right here. Reset alarm. Just another key switch to turn on the panel. Diagnostic system. On off. So if you wanted to not check errors, I guess, you could turn that off. Station on, station off, lift on, lift off. Storage operation, and turn on or off. Six Flags added this part. Over here, this is the horn that will play if a error was detected. So if there's a trouble light, then this little tone would go off, and you could push this button to silence it. And then, of course, the E-stop with some German on it. And this is the startup sequence. So power panels on, you test the E-stops, all E-stops are pulled out, panels on, the station's on, lift is on, daily station stop test is done, so there's some station stops in the station, all of those are pulled out, and then these are all the E-stops you have to press for this part, and the station stops you have to push for this part. And then you could enable and disable brakes if you wanted to use it in manual mode. And it wasn't like B&M's or any of the other rides where there was a manual mode, auto mode key switch. No, it was just you could do whatever you wanted on this screen. So they would keep it locked. Storage track, transfer tracks right outside the station at the base of the lift. And you just push the cars on and off. It can hold up to 10, run up to 10 cars. I believe that they only run 8 or 9 these days, if you're lucky. But this is what you would see as an operator, and I really like the Germans are caring about the well-being of their operators. This was a very nice message. I always felt okay when I was here because I would see that. But anyway, continuously moving station. You can see these are the blocks in the station, what their name is in the computer. I believe the lift is like this because on other Mac models, you can have 2 trains on a lift, and so that's so you could theoretically have one in the lower section and one in the upper section. But Dark Knight didn't do that. And then there were either 8 or 9 brakes. Yeah, 8. And so this is where you can control the brakes opening and closing. It tells you what hardware's up there. So the brakes are closed or open. That brake's closed. That brake's open. This brake's closed, and those are some drive tires. Those brakes are open, and the drive tires are on. That sort of thing. Yeah, you can see in this one, it's locked. And then all the blocks was this exact panel. So this is at the base of the lift, but the brake ones look the same. You could change that specific block's mode from auto to manual, and then you could open and close the brakes, or in this case, jog the lift. And this light would tell you which mode you're in. Oh, here's one for a brake. Oh no, this is the lift again. Like I said, didn't spend a ton of time with this ride, so I don't necessarily remember everything. Base of the lift. Checks the position of the gear. Counts the chain. Counts the chain dogs. And this is what a brake would look like with the lights on and all that. So there was no light switch for this thing. If you wanted to turn on the lights, you had to press the knee stop. That was the rule, pretty much. Because there was a light switch, but it was in the middle of the ride area, and you couldn't really access it while the ride was in operation because you weren't supposed to go in there. I don't have a great. It's right beneath where I'm standing in this picture at the top of the lift. So there's a light switch in there, but you can't go in there when the ride's not e-stop. So what's the point? But yeah, this is the inside of the ride. The Six Flags used for a lot of storage, that kind of stuff. Fright Fest things. There's a Batmobile in there. Tons of cell phones that have to be recovered in here. Hats, glasses, wigs. Actually, a lot of wigs get lost on this thing. But yeah, I don't think I have too much else to say about this ride. Like I said, it ran itself. All you did as an operator was stand there and watch them go by, and you'd count on a little hand clicker how many you got in an hour. But other than that, it ran itself. This ride did sometimes have trouble lights. Usually it was because the station was stopped too long and cars started to back up on the right course, and once you back a certain amount of cars up, you're out on parts of the ride where it's not really meant to stop all the time. So it would err, and then maintenance would have to come around and usually clear each one individually. But yeah, short one because not a whole lot to say about this thing. See you guys in the next one.